Those pictures with his mother, when he was happy and smiling, they remind me of me and my mother. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could just see like how happy he was, how smiling he was, how full of life he was, right? You could see his mother smiling next to him. You know, that was Christmas time the year prior, right? And everything was happy. He was a happy child. Everything was just going good. You know, they was living a happy life. Like, and then for all of that to happen because of exaggeration, because of a whistle.
If it wasn't for oh.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning back in. I'm back with another video, and this isn't unlike any other video I've done before. It's a true crime video, and this is one of those cases that I've learned about. I'm pretty sure most of y'all know about this, but something about it has just been weighing heavily on me to the point where, like, I've become restless just thinking about it. Like, I've lost sleep thinking about this case. It happened 70 years ago in 1955, but it still resonates today. This is a case where I feel like it's one of the worst injustices in American history. This video is going to be about the abduction and the brutal murder of 14-year-old Emmett Till in 1955. I'm pretty sure this is one of those cases we've heard. This is a name we've heard. And I'm pretty sure most of y'all know about the pictures. And as a warning, I'm going to show some of the pictures, but I'll leave a heads up because I know that could be triggering for people. It should be triggering for anybody. But this is one of those situations where what his mother decided to do 70 years ago for his funeral and everything, having everything publicized, that gave people a real gut-wrenching look at what evilness, what hatred could do. I feel like this is a case that goes beyond racism. It goes into like a demonic realm. You see the black and white pictures, you hear 1955, you think, oh, this was so long ago. One of Emmett Till's relatives, as a matter of fact, his older cousin who witnessed the abduction, who was in the house when he got abducted, he's still alive today. You look up the videos and interviews, he still does videos explaining what happened. You know what I'm saying? His mother lived until 2003, you know? So it's the fact that Emmett Till could still be alive today. As a matter of fact, at the time of this recording, his birthday is coming up. July 25th, he would have been 84. And something was pushing me to do this video. I've been thinking about this for weeks, but something pushed me to finally do this video because I feel like the way everything happened, even back then, right? And as the years and decades went by, there was chances and opportunities for justice to be served. You know, the demonic individuals involved with his murder, they were still alive for decades after. Nothing was done. It was kind of like, you know, the court system wiped their hands with it. It was like, but I just wanted to shed more light on the situation. I just wanted to keep this story out there and let the world see what his mother wanted the world to see, because it's like, wow. Certain factors of this situation, certain people with that hatred, with that evilness, they still exist today. You know what I'm saying? Imagine all the Emmett Tills before and after who didn't get that publicized. This story begins with Emmett Till being born July 25th, 1941. He was born to Mamie Till and Louis Till. His father went to the war, and that's another situation where it's like, when he was 4 years old, his father got executed for an eerily similar situation. He was accused of assaulting a white woman in Europe. I think it was in Italy when he was in the war. They accused him of assaulting her and murdering her. He was to blame for it. He got executed. It was really no evidence to prove that he did it, but he got the blame for it. They executed him, and they sent his mother like a telegram Emmett was only 4 years old. So Emmett was raised by his mother and his grandmother. But at 6 years old, Emmett contacted polio, which luckily he was able to get over, but it left him with a severe speech impediment, a severe stutter that he carried with him until he was 14. I'm using certain adjectives. I'm being this descriptive for a reason because it's going to come up later. He had the speech impediment, he had a severe stutter, and as he got older, he was just known for being a happy kid. Always telling jokes, always wanting somebody to tell him jokes. He was funny, he was outgoing, he had a personality where he was just like infectious, right? Mind you, this is the 50s. Growing up in the 40s to the 50s, the mid 50s, he was just a happy kid. He liked to have fun, but he was also responsible. The way his mother and grandmother raised him, he was responsible. I remember hearing a story of his mother telling a part where he was like 12, 13, and he knew his mother had to work. On his days off, he would go pay the bills around Chicago, because he grew up in Chicago. His mother was at work, she would give him money, he would go all around the town paying the phone bill, the light bill, this bill, that bill, making it easier for his mother. And then he would come home, leave the change for his mother, go to the neighbor's house, play with them, and by the time his mother came home, he would come home and help cook, everything, he was 13 years old. With that, by the time he was 13, 14 years old, he had like a stocky build. It's different ways. People could say like chubby or husky. He had like a stockier build than some of the kids his age, some of his classmates, and he had that severe stutter. So in some ways, people, his classmates, friends might tease him about it, but the way he played it off. He would joke back with them, so it wasn't like he was getting bullied. He knew how to play it off and joke back. He was a big jokester. That's another thing. You hear his cousin talk about him, he just talking about how much he loved to laugh, how much he loved to make other people laugh. But he still had a maturity to him. And he was a sharp dresser, which is where you see the most famous pictures of him, before everything happened, where he has on the nice outfit, he has on that black tie with the white stripe. That was taken during Christmas time, 1954, just months before that Christmas, before he went to Mississippi to visit his relatives, which is where this atrocity happened. And that's another thing. This case is a case where a picture, an image speaks 1,000 words. In those pictures with his mother, you could just see how happy, how full of life he was. And even in the black and white, you can see how bright his eyes shined. And if I remember correctly, his mother said his eyes were a hazel color. When he was born, he was like really light skinned, almost white with blue eyes. But as he got older, his skin became tanner. His eyes turned into a hazel color. That's another important point I'm gonna bring up later. And overall, you hear these stories of Emmett by his family, by his friends at the time, his classmates at the time. He was just a happy kid. One of his classmates said that he was like one of the cutest boys in school. Like a lot of girls had a crush on him, and he was always making people laugh. And he just had like an infectious personality, right? He was just a happy, healthy, funny, outgoing kid. Now here's where things took a turn for the very worst. That next summer, 1955, his great uncle, his mother's uncle, had came to town in Chicago where they lived. Now before he went back, his cousins was going to go back with the uncle to Mississippi to visit. Because it was a thing, and it's still a thing now, where kids from up north, they would visit their other family, their other relatives down south. I've did it many times. I live in New York, but there would be those summers where I would go down to South Carolina to visit my other half of the family. Emmett's mother, Mamie Till, knowing how different the South was, because in Chicago, up north, this is 1955. Racism is everywhere, but it was different up north. In the South, it was really like they were still some living in like the slave times, the slave mentality, that slave master mentality. Like, it was terrible. Y'all know about civil rights, all that. 1955, down south, Mississippi. It was basically like, that slave master slave mentality of like, I'm superior as a white person. You're underneath me. Obey me. You're below me. We're not equal. That type of thing. And it was really pushed in the South. So Emmett's mother, knowing that, she was reluctant to let Emmett go down there with his cousins, because Emmett wanted to go with his cousins just to experience the down south life, see what they do, hang out with them. She said how she would like give him lectures and talks about, when you go down there, it's different. It's not like up here. And she would really drill it into him and his cousins how you got to behave differently. You can't look white people in the eye. You can't, any contact with a white person, just avoid it, unless you have to, And she said Emmett would be like, all right, mama, okay, mama, I got it. Like, he told her like, okay, like, you don't have to worry. And she eventually let him go. He convinced her to let him go, as reluctant as she was. And I also remember she said right before he boarded the train, she gave him his father's ring. Remember, his father had died when he was 4, but he still had a ring that they sent to her. She gave him his ring, and he was excited about it. He put it on, it fit him, and he's, oh, I'm gonna show my cousins, I'm gonna show the fellas when I get down there. And he also gave her his watch that he was wearing. He was like, oh, I'm not gonna need this where I'm going, They gave each other a hug. He gave her a kiss. He boarded the train. Little did she know that would be the last time she saw him alive. Now, right? The first couple of days, everything was fine. He was playing with the cousins. They would go out. They would go out to the cotton fields and pick cotton, because, they still did that back then down there. And, they said, his cousin said how he would pick some cotton, lay on the bag, and just lay there and watch them. And he was like, I'm tired. Like, and he was used to this. He's from Chicago, where he used to play around and ride his bike and just have fun. But he wanted to experience that down south life, and everything was fine. He would even send his mother letters saying what he was doing, and she was worried, but she was like, okay, everything's going fine. And one day, they decided to go to a store because, they wanted some candy and, little snacks and treats. They went to Bryant grocery store because, down there were only so many black-owned businesses, so they had to go to the white stores. And the white people at the store tolerated them, but it was that, just don't disrespect me, like, don't look me in the eye, that type of thing, where it's just like, they'll take the black people money, but, you not equal as me. As they said, it was the layout. It was like checkerboards outside and a little play area outside. Some of them stopped there, was playing checkers and just having fun, talking. Eventually, Emmett went inside the store. I said, this is a white-owned store. A white lady was in there, Carolyn Bryant. She was in there, at the register. She was taking in charge of the store. Her husband was wherever. She was in charge of the store. Emmett went in there to buy some gum. Now, the interaction from his cousin who's still alive, says Emmett went in there, he bought the gum. The only contact they may have had is when she went to give him his change, and they may have touched hands. Okay. Eventually, because they realized he was in the store by himself at one point, they went in there with him. Everything was fine. He got his change. He had his gum. They walked out. Now, mind you, they on the porch of the store playing, whatever, talking. For some reason, And this is in the words of his own cousin, because it's speculation where a lot of people say, oh, he didn't whistle at her. He did whistle at her. She said that he didn't whistle. His own cousin said that he did whistle. Now, the context of why they made it seem like she was this beautiful supermodel. She was wearing this nice, pretty dress. She came out the store and Emmett was like, woo woo, like, whistled at her like, oh, like, wow, look how attractive she is. But here's the story his cousin told, that he did whistle. They were outside the store. She came outside the store, coming down the steps to do something. And mind you, like I said, Emmett had a severe stutter. But for some reason, he just whistled as she was coming out the store. And his cousin said that it was so ironic because any other time Emmett had a harsh stutter, you could barely understand what he was saying. But when he whistled, it was like the sharpest, loudest, most crisp, clear whistle he ever heard, to where everybody stopped. It was like, and the cousin described it as some type of like wolf whistle, like a something like that, something in that, of that form. And in some type of way, she felt like it was directed at her. And when he did that, they all just stopped, and it was like, they all got scared. And they said that she ran to the car and tried to grab a gun, and that's when they ran off and they drove off. Now, when this happened, when they were in the car driving off, they all told Emmett, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And he got scared and was like, he didn't know. He just did it because it's like, he was a big jokester. He was just laughing and playing with his friends, whatever. But little did they know what was to come. Now, the cousin said that they were so scared, they drove off. And they were just scurrying down the road, and back then in Mississippi, it was like all, cornfields and trees and all kind of stuff. They were scurrying down the road. And as they were driving, they saw a car following them. And they was like, oh God, we about to die. They after us. And they had just scurried off the road into like a cornfield. They stopped and ran into the cornfield trying to hide. But the car kept going. So they was like, oh, okay. And they felt like they were safe. Like, okay, that was an incident. He whistled, but it wasn't nothing vulgar. It wasn't nothing like this bitch later exaggerated and lied and said he did all this stuff and said all this stuff to her. It was just a whistle. That was it. They thought they were in the clear. Everything was fine after that. 2-3 days went by with nothing. They were fine. Now, this is where the story really gets me, because it's like, just imagining this situation, and this is where I've been restless, and I've been almost having like nightmares thinking about what Emmett went through when this happened, and thinking about like what if this was me? Like, you know what I'm saying? This is one of those things where it's just like, the cousin said 3 days later, everything was fine. That night, they had went to sleep. 3 days after this happened. It was like 2:30 in the morning. Now, mind you, the uncle lived in like a large shack house. Some way, somehow, when at the time this happened, when Carolyn was in the store working, she was by herself. In those 2-3 days where they thought they were in the clear, her husband came back from wherever he was doing, fishing or doing whatever the fuck he was doing. She had told him what had happened, but somehow the interaction got exaggerated to where it was like, she said that Emmett grabbed her and was grabbing her waist and was like, oh, I've been with a white woman before. You don't need to be scared of me. Da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. And he was just coming on to her and like really like forcing himself on her. Now, mind you, she said he did all of this. The cousins were a witness. He grabbed her and was on her and was like talking with her. Mind you, he had a severe stutter. That never came up. But somehow it got exaggerated to him doing all of this, basically like assaulting her, when all he did was just whistle loudly. But it felt like it was directed at her. That's the only interaction they really had, besides him paying for some bubble gum. And thus, The husband of this white lady find out, and his half brother, who he was close with, find out what happened. And to them, like I said, that 1955 Mississippi thinking, they became outraged. And as I said, the husband was upset, but the half brother had a real like slave master mentality where he thought blacks were so beneath him. The same man also had black people working for him, black men working for him, black minions, so to speak. Some reason, somehow, they found out where Emmett was staying. They found out where the great uncle lived. Some people speculate that one of the black people working for this half brother gave the address because they didn't know from a can of paint. The whole town of Mississippi, how did they find out? Even his mother said she never found out how these two demons knew where to go look for Emmett and the family. So, 3 days later, 2:30 in the morning, they're all sleeping. As the cousin says, it's pitch black. There's no moonlight. It's just pitch black darkness. And in this big shack, I got like 3-4 rooms. They hear people talking outside the shack. You know, it's a big, large shack. But, you know, where you can park your cars and everything, they hear a lot of loud talking. And they can hear voices. And they're like, what's going on? And as the seconds go by, the voices get louder until they hear boom, 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 boom at the door. The uncle answers the door and they barge in, asking, where's the fat boy from Chicago? Referring to Emmett. I guess this is the description the stupid bitch at the store gave of him. Somehow they found out he was from Chicago. Like, all this information, this random interaction, how did they find out where he was staying? How did they find out he was from Chicago? Somebody told them. They came in asking, where's the fat boy from Chicago? And they said the half brother, he was more upset than the husband of this lady. He had a flashlight in one hand, a pistol in the other hand, going from room to room, looking to see, where's the fat boy from Chicago? Now, the first 2-3 rooms he went, he realized it wasn't him. He got to the last room where Emmett was. And he asks him, you that boy that did all that talking? Referring to this interaction. Remember, all he did was whistle. Emmett says, yeah. The half brother replies to him, don't say yeah to me, boy, if I blow your head off. Him saying yeah was disrespectful. They wanted him to say, yes, sir. You see, like, it was like even in that situation, they felt like Emmett was disrespecting them, saying yeah. In that instance, they rushed him out, tried to hurry him up to get him out the house. Emmett gets up and he's like, mind you, it's 2:30 in the morning. He didn't know what's going on. He gets up. He's like, he goes to put on his socks, to put on his shoes, and they rush him out. And Emmett tells them, I don't put on my shoes unless I put on my socks first. And in their mind, he's still being defiant. So they already mad because of what they think he did. And when they come to the house to abduct him, right? And rush him out the house, marched him out the house, as the cousin said, he was already like not obeying them. That made them even more mad. So they finally rushed him out the house, and the cousin said he'll never forget the face Emmett made as he turned around and watched them, because it's like there was so much going on, and the uncle tried to stop him. The aunt was there trying to stop him, saying, I'll pay you, please let him go. He didn't know any better. He's from Chicago. He's about to leave in a few days. He didn't know any better. Demon that abducted him with the half brother, oh, he gonna learn today. He gonna learn tonight. A lot of people say, why didn't they fight back? In that situation, there was so much going on, and it was just such a mentality that they felt like if they would have fought back, if they would have tried to keep him in there, the man had a pistol, he would have just shot and probably killed all of them in that house. Now, the uncle had a pistol himself, but he just felt like he was like outnumbered. It was only him, the aunt, and a whole bunch of his little nephews and sons. So he felt like In his hearts, he just prayed that, okay, they're going to take him, but they're going to bring him back. They was just supposed to scare him, right? That was the idea. Even in the confession that they made, which I'm going to get into, they was just supposed to scare him to make him feel like, oh, don't ever do that again. These demons that took him. So in their head, they thinking, oh, God, but they hoping and praying that they bring him back. Night turned into morning. One day turned into the next. That turned into another day. He never came back. 2-3 days later, he never came back. They called his mother immediately that next morning or that night, told her what happened. And she had people in Chicago contact people down there in Mississippi. There was an ongoing investigation. It was in the newspapers. Negro boy from Chicago missing in Mississippi. It was becoming a big story. 3 days later, there was a white boy and his father fishing in the Tallahatchie River down in Mississippi. He's like on the bank or wherever he was on the side. He's fishing, and he sees like legs and like feet sticking out the water, like a pair of like bloated legs and feet just bobbing out the water. And he told the father. They notified the authorities, the sheriff. They came down, and mind you, they had already known that Emmett was missing. So when the sheriff saw this, they pulled the body out the water. Attached to his body was a 75-pound cotton gin attached with barbed wire around his neck. Knowing what had happened with this abduction, the sheriff immediately contacted the great uncle to come down there and identify the body. Now they said his body was so disfigured that the only way he could identify Emmett was by the ring he was wearing. The same ring his mother gave him before he left. The same ring that he was so excited to show them. They said that his body was so disfigured they couldn't even tell who it was, what race he was. His skin was bloated, and mind you, they had killed him. I'm gonna get into that. He had been in the water for 3 days. So, as a body decomposes on land, it's one way. Decomposing under the water in the hot Mississippi heat, nasty, dirty water for 3 days, his body got bloated and it just decomposed at an even higher and faster rate. And it said the smell was putrid. The smell was like unfathomable, And it said the sheriff was like, we got to bury this body right away. Now, mind you, Emmett's mother is still in Chicago. She heard what happened with the abduction. She doesn't know about them finding his body. So the sheriff decides we gotta get rid of this body. We gotta just bury him. The same day they found him, they wanted to bury him in the backyard of some church. And the uncle was just going to go along with it. They had already a plot picked out for him. They already had a pine box picked out for him. Until one of the cousins said to the uncle, we're not going to tell Mamie, Emmett's mother. You're not going to tell Mamie what happened? And then the uncle was like, they called Mamie. They told her everything. The whole house in Chicago, because they was all gathered at her house trying to figure out what happened. Once they told the news, everybody just broke down crying. Everybody was just, and she immediately put a stop to that burial down there in Mississippi, because they tried the way he looked, as disfigured as he looked, the sheriff wanted to just get rid of it, like throw it away, like have it not be no big thing. And Mamie said no immediately. She contacted the right people, and she arranged for his body, to be sent back to Chicago. Now, I've watched a lot of interviews with Mamie, his mother, and she describes how it was such a hard process. Mind you, this is 1955. She's in Chicago. His body was in Mississippi. It was a long, drawn-out process and payment for him to get sent to Chicago. They didn't want her seeing. They didn't want nobody seeing. They didn't want nothing getting out about how he looked or what really happened. But she said they sent his body back to Chicago by train. And when the train arrived and it opened, where she knew his body was there, all she saw was this big brown box, and she just broke down. You know how she was expecting him to be in like a pine box the size of like a regular casket, but they had his body so sealed that he was inside of a box, inside of another box, inside of another box, inside of this big brown box that she saw as the train doors just slid open. And all she could do was just, like her heart just dropped. Could you imagine that? Just 3, 4, 5 days ago, she sent her son down there to visit his relatives to have fun for the summer before he started school. He started ninth grade that September. When he left, he was full of life. He was excited. And then a few days later, he's coming back inside of this big box. It was chained and locked. And they eventually took him to a funeral home in Chicago. And the man was like, oh, they told me under the conditions that we can send his body back to Chicago, but under no circumstances can this box be opened. It has to remain sealed. How are you going to tell his mother it got to remain sealed? You can't open the box. No. That was the agreement to send him back. His mother was like, okay, you got a hammer? I'll open it. You don't have to open it, but I'll open it. The funeral home director. So eventually, after some convincing, she wasn't going to give up. Because she said she didn't know what they sent back in that box. It could have been mud, it could have been bricks, it could have been anything in that box saying that they sent his body. She wanted to make sure it was him. So after a while, they finally opened the box. Inside of the box to where his body was, they had like pellets around him. She had went home, and the funeral director told her, I'm going to call you when he's ready. I'm going to call you when we get him out. So she said the man finally called her. Mind you, she didn't see how he looked. She just knew he was in there. The man finally called her to come back down to the funeral home to see him in the back room. And she said, soon as she pulled up to where the funeral home was, she could smell it. She could smell something from 2 blocks away. Not little did she know that was Emmett's body. He had been underwater for 3 days. All the stuff that happened to him, the smell, the stench, the decay that his body had went through, she could smell it from 2 blocks away. And she said when she went inside and he pulled the sheets back, she said that she felt like she could almost collapse, but when he pulled the sheet back, something in her just straightened up and she turned to steel. She broke down inside, but something in her mind told her, straighten up. She looked and she said she started from his feet, looking all the way up to what was left of his head and face. And she confirmed that it was him. Could you imagine? I don't think nobody could imagine that. What she had to go through, what she had to witness, just the thought process, just the mindset of just knowing you sent your son down there a few days ago and having him come back like this, hearing what happened to him. He was pulled out the water, and then seeing his bloated body, and then seeing the disfigurement of his face, looking at him. She said his tongue was all the way choked out. His tongue went past his chin. She didn't even know a tongue can get that long. One of his eyes were missing. One of the other eyes were hanging out the socket. His nose looked chopped. One of his ears were cut off. She said she prided in how perfect his teeth was. She stayed on him about brushing his teeth, his dental hygiene. She felt like he had perfect teeth. All his teeth were missing except for 2. And she said it seemed like his head was crushed like his head was like chopped, like with a hatchet or something like that. And it seemed like part of his skull, his head, was like coming off. They had to prop it up with something underneath his head. And also, she saw a bullet hole through the side of his head. When she looked through it, she could see through the other side. I can't even begin to imagine what she had to go through, the trauma she had to go through. But she said from then on, she knew she had a job to do. You know, she cried, she broke down, but she knew she had a job to do. And she said, she insisted on having a public funeral, an open casket, and that same day or the next day, she wanted the press to come in and take pictures. Jet Magazine took those famous pictures that we know of Emmett's body on full display so she could show the world, let the world see what these demons did to my son. Warning, this is where I'm going to show the pictures. So if you don't want to see them, if you're going to be triggered by them, I would suggest skipping 20, 30 seconds from this. Here are the pictures. That was only the work of demons, what they did to his body, what they did to his face. And I remember his mother saying she felt like when she looked at him, it was like everything was targeted at his face, everything was targeted at his head. Later on, they would come to find out that he had like a broken wrist and a broken like leg. That could have been from when they tossed him in the water with the cotton gin fan attached to his neck. And they even said they were surprised he wasn't even decapitated. Everything was targeted at his face and his head. And it was like, and like I said before, a lot of people say this, it was like, that's only the work of demons. Only the demonic, it goes beyond being racist and prejudiced, having hatred. That was demonic forces within those men. I don't know, they don't even deserve to be called men. It basically like destroyed his face. Do you see how he looked? You see how he looked before? And you see the after? And it's like I said before, not to be superficial or anything, but they said that he had really good looks. He was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, he had like a nice, as people say, like a light hazel eye color. And his eyes were gouged out. One of them were completely gone, the other one was hanging out. It's like these demons were envious of him. Even at 14 years old, they felt like, oh, he had to stay with the white wife. They looked at him. I could tell, like, the story is they were supposed to scare him, but what happened is they drove him around for hours. Imagine what Emmett went through, his last hours, the fear of being surrounded by these group of men that want to harm him, kill him. They drove him around Mississippi, the woods, the dirt roads for hours trying to find somewhere to scare him. Until they couldn't find somewhere, they settled on a barn from one of their relatives. They dragged him into the barn. They tortured him, beat him, pistol whipped him for who knows how long. He was still alive when they drove him to the bridge where the Tallahatchie River was. They came in contact with a cotton gin fan, made him drag it out to where the bridge was, made him strip, take all his clothes, and just shot him in the head. Wrapped the cotton gin around his neck with barbed wire and then threw his body in the river, hoping that the 75-pound cotton gin fan will weigh him down. But as it was, his body caught onto something, and that's how that boy fishing with his father was able to see his feet sticking out. This is the part that always just gets me. I'm just like, why? How? Why? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not unbelievable because you know the time period, you know the era, you know the hatred people had. But like I said in the beginning, this goes to another realm. This goes into a demonic force, a demonic energy. to do all of this to this little boy. All these, and the story was it was those two men, the husband and the half brother. But as the story goes, there was a group of men that abducted him, including some of his black minions that helped him, right? And as the story goes, when they abducted him, they took him to this white bitch, the white lady from the store. She don't deserve to be called a lady. The white bitch from the store. And they like forced him, like, is this him? Is this him? And she shook her head. And then that's when they drove off and they took him to the barn and they did what they did. And like I said, this always gets me because it did not have to go down like that. Like, and even in the mindset, the demonic mindset, y'all wanted to take him and scare him. Y'all could have just scared him, whatever, screamed at him, blah, 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 and just drove him back to the uncle house, throw him back on the porch. He would have been alive and scared, but he would have still been alive. Like, okay, you proved your point, you scared him. Where did it turn into what they did to him? You see the pictures. For those of y'all that decided to watch, look at it. Y'all saw the pictures. That, he didn't even look human. Like, honestly, that's where it was such a big thing, because the way he looked, people was like, is this even him? Honestly. You couldn't even tell like what race he was. I just can't. And then the fact that he was under the water for 3 days, that just exaggerated all the injuries and trauma that he had and the disfigurement that he had and made him bloated. Oh my God. This is where his mother came. His mother stepped in. She wanted that public funeral. She wanted Jet Magazine to take these pictures to show the world what they did. And they said this Jet Magazine was one of the most ran magazines in the country. It sold out that they had to reprint more. I think it like over 30 million copies, 3 million copies, something like that. It sold millions of copies all around the world. People seeing what these demons did to him. You see the before and the after. You see the pictures of him with his nice outfit, with his tie, smiling with his mother. And like I said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Those pictures with his mother, it reminds me of me and my mother. He was a happy child. Everything was just going good. You know, they was living a happy life. Like, and then for all of that to happen because of exaggeration, because of a whistle, and then it was exaggerated the way he did it, how he came on and all this other stuff. It's just like, damn, do you see those pictures? Do you see what they did to him? Oh, damn. I didn't even expect to get like this because I've been sitting with this for weeks. I've been researching this, but it's like just talking about it 70 years later, just talking about it, it's like, damn. Like, Emmett could have still been alive today. Emmett could have been 84 today. His older cousin is still alive. Emmett never got to live his life past 14. 14, I remember when I was 14, right? That's when you're just starting to go through puberty. You know, you're coming into your own. You're a teenager. You're in your early teens. You're starting to figure out life. You're starting to look at life in a different way. You becoming friends. You know, he never got to like have a girlfriend, have a wife, have kids, have grandkids. He never got to just experience life, experience how the culture, how life, how everything has evolved. He never got to experience the new music genres that came out in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or the new music artists, or the new music genres, how technology evolved. Because this is 1955, you know what I'm saying? Like, he never got to experience none of that. His life was just cut short by those demons over something so trivial, over a whistle. And even if she exaggerated and said this and that, she's a part of it, you know, because she exaggerated like he did all these things that he never did, right? And then the thing about it is, the biggest injustice is, right, that they went to trial. It was clear as day that they did it. An all-white jury, all white men, not guilty. These demons were brazen enough, bold enough. They had the audacity to abduct him, kidnap him from a house that they knew he was staying in. It's not like he was just some random homeless street kid that they knew he didn't have no family, they could just do whatever they want with him. That wouldn't have been right either. But the fact that he was in a family house, they just came in there bold enough to just take him, knowing that they could do whatever they want and nothing would happen to them. And that's what happened. They did all that, tortured him, killed him, shot him in the head, threw him in the water with a cotton gin fan attached around his neck. His mother had this public funeral, let the world see what happened. It was publicized. It said at the funeral with the open casket, every third person that walked by was passing out. Both genders, all ages, all races. Every third person, every fourth, fifth person that walked by him saw what they did to him, saw his face or what was left of it. They would just pass out. A few months later, they have this trial. All white men say not guilty. A few months later, they confess to killing him, torturing him for a magazine interview, and they were paid $4,000, and nothing ever happened to them. The trial was done. The court system washed their hands with it. He never got his justice. They never got back in jail. They was able to live decades after. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is one of the worst injustices in American history. One of the worst. Emmett Till, his mother never got justice. His mother lived until 2003 fighting for him. She never got justice. Emmett Till never got justice. Those demons, they lived decades after. They died, they had cancer, the store closed down. People could say that's the karma, but it's like, no. To me, real karma would have been them getting convicted, being found guilty, and getting sentenced to death. Electric chair. Letting Emmett's family, letting his mother come in and watch them get electrocuted. Let her watch the life leave out of their eyes like they watched Emmett's. That would have been real justice for me. But no, they got off scot-free. They was able to live decades after. And then the thing that got me is, you see the trial pictures where they got off, the demons and the white bitch from the store that lied on Emmett, exaggerated what happened. They all laughing and kissing and hugging and Meanwhile, with them is their kids that were a little younger than Emmett. Imagine if a group of black men did this to a little white boy. Imagine that. Imagine that. I just can't. This case has been weighing heavily on me. Like I said, 70 years later, Emmett Till would have turned 84 this year. In August makes 70 years since this happened, and it's just like, I cannot just believe that nothing was ever done. And like I said, his mother fought for years. 20, 10, 15, 30, 40 years after, she was still doing interviews, still doing documentaries, still telling his story, still trying to get justice for him. And to the point where, at one point, she even, on camera, said that she forgave them. She said it was hard for her to do, but in her heart, spiritually, she had to forgive them for her sake. And she said after a while, she just wiped them from her mind. The one from the store that he whistled at, I'm pretty sure they saw the pictures. Of course they did. They saw what happened. They saw what they did. They know what they did. But with the demonic forces like that, that probably didn't even move them. They know what they did. Now, seeing how he looked after they pulled him from the water and seeing the funeral pictures and the Jet magazine pictures, they probably were like, it didn't affect them. It didn't affect them. Carolyn Bryant, the one that he whistled at, the one that exaggerated the truth of what happened, that caused them to go him and look and abduct him and kidnap him and murder him, torture him, she was supposedly writing a book. She lived up until like 2021, 2022. She only died like 3-4 years ago. She's been alive all this time. Like I said, Emmett could have still been alive. She died like 3-4 years ago. Even in the 2020s, this lady was still alive. She was in her 80s. They could have brought her to trial. They could have did this. But what was the idea? Oh, that happened so long ago. Oh, she's 80 something now. I don't give a fuck if that bitch was bedridden, bitch. Airlift the bed that she's in to the courthouse and let her have her day in court, bitch. Something. Bring the courthouse to her. Somebody has to pay for what happened to him. The two demons, they died. So be it. They didn't get no type of conviction, no jail time, no nothing. This lady is the root of all of this. You know, she put the battery in their back to go, look what he did to me. All he did was just whistle. And then they ran off. How did that turn into, he grabbed me and he did this to me and he... She could have been brought to court. She could have had to at least come out, I don't care how old she was, 80, whatever. Come out and at least have your day in court. At least talk about this. How has this affected you over the last 60, 70 years? But no, they just left her alone. She was living in North Carolina in some type of old folks retirement home at the time. It was so sympathetic towards her because she was so old. Fuck that. They could have had her in court. She could at least been summoned to come and explain, tell like what happened. Why did you lie on him? Nothing. They just prolonged it until the bitch died. Now they all dead. Anybody involved with Emmett's abduction, murder, torture, anybody involved, directly or indirectly, they all dead. Good riddance to them. But it's like, Emmett never got justice. His mother, for 40, 50 years after his death, fought for him, never got justice. Now, as I said, Emmett's death sparked the civil rights movement and everything. And a few months later, that's when Rosa Parks refused to get up. And she said, when the man came to her telling her, get up, get up, get up, the first thing she thought about was Emmett. Because before this happened, this Emmett's murder in the public funeral had happened like months before Rosa Parks was on that bus. First thing she thought about was Emmett Till. And she said, no, I'm not moving nowhere. I'm staying here. And then, you know, the rest is literally history. And just now, a few years ago, Biden came out with like the Emmett Till anti-lynching law. They made a statue after him. It's like all these things that's coming out after. It's like, okay, but Emmett Till still didn't get justice. He could have been 84 years old, having lived his life, have his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren. But instead, he's forever frozen at 14 as like a spark for the civil rights movement and like an example of look what happened, like a cautionary tale. His mother said she never knew why her son was chosen as like the sacrificial lamb for all of this to happen to him, to spark the civil rights movement and to spark and for people to see, not just hear about it, oh, they did this to him. No, she wanted people to see what they did. And that just gave a gut-wrenching reality of it. You can hear about something, but when you see it, it's right there in your face. You flip the page open, it's right there in the magazine. You can go to Google and image search it, it's right there. 70 years later, it still stands effective today. People will go visit Emmett's gravesite. They will visit his mother's gravesite because they're very close together in Chicago. But then some people will go visit the gravesites of the demons that did this to him. And they said, in the whole cemetery, it's nothing but nice green grass. When you get to their plots with their tombstones, right, their grave markers, the grass is dead, insinuating that in most cases, the only part of that whole entire area that's dead is around their plot, which means that people could be pissing on them, pissing on their graves. And to that I say, so be it. I hope the people that did that had a nice refreshing drink on the way there. I hope that those demons, anybody involved with Emmett's death, I hope they're burning in hell where demons like them belong. And I hope that in some form or fashion, Emmett and his mother is resting peacefully. I know they can't fully because they haven't really gotten justice, but wherever they are now, I know they're together. I hope they're together. I hope they're resting peacefully. And I just want to know, what did y'all guys think of the Emmett Till case? How much did you know about this case? When did you first learn about this case? Have y'all saw those pictures before? What was your initial reaction? How do you feel that 7 years later, things like this is potentially still going on? Even the markers where they left for him in Mississippi, white people still shoot it up. The case with him being from Chicago, his mother making it a public thing that brought all this national attention to it. Imagine all the Emmett Tills before and after. That story never got no attention, and their families just suffered in silence. With this, I just say rest in peace to Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie Till. I hope they're resting peacefully in any way they can. And I just want to know what y'all guys think about this case. This was a hard one for me. You know, I don't do videos like this, but this was just weighing heavily on me. I lost sleep thinking about this for the last few weeks as I got back into this case, and I just had to give my 2 cents on it. And in some form or fashion, I hope that Emmett Till is able to get some type of justice. I hope that his mother, fighting for so long, is able to get some type of justice, because what happened to him did not have to happen. Was that shouldn't have happened to nobody. Nobody deserves that, especially over a lie, especially over that bitch. Oh, God. If you watched this long, thank you for watching and listening. Please leave your thoughts down below. I can't wait to get this discussion started with y'all. Let me know how this story resonates with you 7 years later. You know, when people say, oh, this is a long time ago, racism doesn't exist, Emmett Till could have still been alive today. Please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. Thank you for watching and listening. I'll see y'all in the next video.